Hello everyone and welcome back to the Florida Relocation Guide YouTube channel. My name is Adam Hancock and today's video we're talking, like the title shows, the 10 best places to retire for 2025 list. This is our new release, and since we've been at this for a while, what I would like to do format-wise for today's video is one, I would like to represent the entire state. So regardless of where you choose to live within the state, whatever region in the whole Florida conversation, we have at least one, maybe two options within that. Second, I'm going to zoom in into each particular region and choose a section of that town that I really like right now for 2025. And third, as a bonus, I'm going to give you one new construction or resale community that I also like that would be retirement-centric option that you could actually live in today if you would like to. So I hope you enjoy my take. If I can help you in any way within the Florida real estate market beyond that, please consider reaching out. All my contact information is right here. And we also have a free relocation guide and a newsletter sign up in the description box below. Without further ado, let's hop in. All right, let's kick it off with number 1 of 10 on my list in no particular order. We're going to start with Naples, Florida Metro. And when I say Naples, I mean Naples, Fort Myers, greater area. This was just ranked once again, depending on what list you look at, of course, as the best overall place out of all of them to retire in the state of Florida. So obviously, even if it's not quite for you, it's for a lot of people. Where I would like to zoom in our 2025 list is a city called Bonita Springs. And to me, it's the ultimate in-betweener. So when it comes to Naples, right, you have the main belle of the ball area, downtown Naples adjacent waterfront. You have deep water canals, aqualine shores, you sit right above Marco Island. That area sits very far south, and it's 1%er land. It's the best of the best of the best when it comes to prototypical retirement. Well, you sit 19 miles above that with Bonita Springs. And then to the north of this conversation, this is going to be our sandwich in between I'm getting at, you sit like Cape Coral, Fort Myers, right? You get a little bit on the fringes. You have more canals than Venice, Italy itself. You have new construction. You have all these kind of things. But where Bonita Springs sitting at that healthy balance gives you fingertip access to everything meaningful about this metro. Regardless of where you choose, if you want to live in Naples, you want to enjoy the Naples things. So Bonita Springs gives you access to a sterile island, Barefoot Beach, which is more docile than the main pure touristy area or the islands. Sanibel, Captiva, with all the shelling and all that, aren't that far away. Like I mentioned, Cape Coral and the fishing and the waterfront restaurants. Right below you is Naples. You have Mercado with North Naples and all that kind of thing. But you don't have the extremism in one price point that would come with choosing the best of the best with Naples, or the logistical sacrifice that would come with going too far east or too far north. And in this area in particular, to me, the binary choice of how different it would feel by being in that coastal area versus not is quite large. So that's why I like it. I like it because it's not too harsh in any direction. It's not too much Naples. It's just enough. And it gives you perspective, affordability, and all the things you would want by living in this lovely southwest Gulf Coast of Florida city. All right, for number 1, as promised, let me give you one quick neighborhood example that you can kind of just add to your research churn. And this is called Bonita del Sol. So this is, I like to give a new construction option if I can. It'll be around, if you're ready now or months from now to research. Pulte-owned community. You're 7 miles one way from the beach. You're less than a mile from the interstate. This one, you have no CDD because of the lane arrangement. 15 plus home designs, like many Pulte communities, across 3 collections, 1,400 to 2,300 plus square feet, anywhere from realistically mid 400,000s to over $1 million, depending on how crazy you want to get, and less than 250 total homes, home neighbors and stuff in this community in general. So I think that'd be a nice little talking head for new construction research. All right, number 2 on my list, we're going after my hometown of Sarasota, Florida, which sits still on the Gulf Coast, the Southwest Gulf Coast, 2 hours directly above number 1. Three-headed monster of zoom-in city area here. Southern Venice, Western Northport, and Northern Englewood. These are 3 cities that sit within Sarasota County. The reason that I'm touching all 3 is because I want to focus on a master plan development called Wellen Park, which is basically a mini city they're building. It's going to be one of the most in vogue I think the Sunshine State has to offer for a long period of time for many, many reasons, but keep an eye out for this one because it's nowhere near done, and if it's not on your radar yet, it will be. A few different reasons that I like this one in particular if I have to pull them up for 2025 retirement. One is the combination between coastal proximity and new construction housing. If you just think about logistics, can't be that common in general because if you move to the state of Florida forever, people are migrating forever, Where do they develop first? Of course, they're not going 30 miles, inland. They're building along the best water they can possibly find. So after all of those years of development, there's no land left. How could they build a bunch of new construction neighborhoods where stuff's already at, right? So that's where you see all the urban infill of knocking down homes and rebuilding, and they basically have to reinvent the wheel over and over. So that's not common in general. Let alone on top of that is master plan. This isn't one neighborhood. 15 plus neighborhoods that are strung together in an intentional environment, which is the attraction of insulation of more when you leave your neighborhood, is even more rare than on top of that. So for them to be able to do all of this here is not that common. That's why you see everything on this coast way east. Where you sit in Wellen, almost every single neighborhood is going to be 18 to 21 minutes one way from 4 beaches. Venice Beach, Casperson, which is arguably the Shark's Tooth capital of the world, Brohard Beach, the only dog beach in the county, and because you strip down into the Englewood area, you get Minnesota Key as well. So that is, that's a thing by itself. Second, which is kind of these are all real niche Adam growing up opinions, but second is some perspective affordability. Venice as a area was always considered junior Sarasota. So everything's Sarasota, right? Siesta Key, Lido, Longboat Key, that whole area. Well, Venice was always like the southern junior to it. It was a little too far south from what people wanted to get to, etc. On paper, it's very, very similar of what it offers. It's, it hugs these islands. It has all these beaches. It has that kind of Florida-style homes, all that kind of thing. It's just Sarasota's 1, Venice was 2. So people still have that same moniker. If you want to be by downtown Sarasota and all that kind of stuff, this is 45 minutes one way. So because of that, there's a price difference. One of the reasons it's a price difference. But if that means nothing to you, because I really think Venice is starting to break its way out. If you're relocating and you're not looking at Sarasota and saying what's in it and Venice is 1, but you're looking at Venice as its own bird, and you're saying Venice versus Sarasota versus Naples in a silo like that, then you can save money because other people have that biased opinion and it doesn't affect you, if that makes sense. A little bit of a word salad. My third and final point is for that similar point I just made about the reason that affordability progressed that way over the years. It has a way more docile old Florida feel to this area, even with all the development. Venice, Florida is this quaint, charming thing, much more than the upscale Sarasota stuff, I think. It's just a different feel completely. So you have the opportunity to mix heavy new construction in a communal environment where they built their own downtown and have that kind of come home to your house, impact windows, new tile roofs, all this kind of stuff that comes with the new environment, which a lot of people enjoy, walkability, stuff like that. But then you're in a town that is more of a Dunedin, a Safety Harbor, an old school kind of feel to it, which I think is, again, another unique benefit to being in this particular area. All right, and one neighborhood I want to shout out for the Wellen Park area is called Brightmoor. Brightmoor is a 55 and up active adult living community built by Mattamy Homes. This is the first Mattamy active adult I've seen, and they typically have some pretty moderate priced opportunities. So Mattamy is a big developer within the Wellen Park area. So it's interesting overall, but 12 floor plans, villas and single families here, depending on what you're looking for. Base prices start beyond, depending on what you want to do on top of the base, low 400s to mid 600s. So not crazy there. Really nice amenities in this one. A lot of Wellen Park came out originally with no frills amenities because they're figuring like no frills, empty nester, you're going to use the town as our amenities, and they try to go that route, or they're swinging back into pretty heavy amenity rich stuff, but a lot hasn't come out yet. This is one of the ones that does. The only 55 and up in here right now as well. You have a lakefront clubhouse, you have resort style pools, you have pickleball, which seems like a deal breaker these days. There is a lifestyle coordinator that works full time, fitness center, there's a Paul Park, the whole thing's gated. Not every community is gated in master plan. There's a cafe and bar. And just a good option overall, because you're going to come in here and you're going to have regular single family neighborhoods. You're going to have some bougie custom stuff, some golf centric. But if you want resort style, turnkey, like-minded people, all that kind of thing, and you're not a golfer necessarily, and you don't want a Lennar home if you're building right now as well, then Brightmoor is a gem. On to number 3, we are talking South Florida / Miami. And for this one, I want to focus on another, really, honestly, an in-betweener, if you can't already tell what my preferred lifestyle is at this point. But that is a place called Boca Raton, Florida. And what this gives you is If you have chosen or physically need to live in this region, right? If you like what South Florida is, if you like the aesthetic, you prefer the lifestyle that would exist here uniquely in juxtaposition to the Gulf Coast or the Northeast or the Panhandle or something like that. If that's you, but you don't necessarily want to sit in Miami and you don't want to sit in Palm Beach, then this one gives you the middle. Hour down, you can enjoy all the Miami-ness. Half an hour up, you can enjoy all that Palm Beach is. But you come home to Boca Raton, and it is still just as elegant, but more peaceful, laid-back alternative, in my opinion. And then I would categorize this one as a complete retirement town. It has golf, it has healthcare, shopping, dining, suburbs, all of it in a very high-end and clean way in general. All right, one neighborhood I wanted to mention for our number 3 option, for example's sake, is called Boca West. So wide range of home types. This is a good kind of good example of what Boca Raton means. Depending on where you end up, you could have a garden, lake, or a golf view, and this is quintessential country club living, amenity-wise, world-class golf, and the like. So if you're really attracted to this area in particular, this could give you a nice kickoff point. Number 4 on the list, we're talking Central Florida. And one spot I really like right now for 2025 is called Windermere. So what this basically is it's the parallel neighbor of another really popular area called Dr. Phillips. Both are on the western side of the downtown Orlando environment. But where Dr. Phillips is a little bit more in the thick of it. You know, Orlando is a big metro, it's a busy area, and it has a lot of like particular like tourist-centric stuff. Dr. Phillips is going to put you closer to that stuff. It's going to put you in, you have a restaurant row. A lot of families really, really enjoy it. It's super high end. It's nice, but you're in the action much more. Windermere sitting beside of it, but not too far from it, lets you have a lot of the goods from Dr. Phillips, but in a more tranquil atmosphere, basically. So you have larger lots out here, a lot of neighborhoods to pick from on the really high end type of stuff. This is an elegant environment for sure. There's a chain of lakes that sits right next to you. And if you're going to be in Central Florida, one of the perks to that, if you're into it, is the nature focus, more than coastal areas that wouldn't have all of this land and the lake environment. But at the same time, it's very possible that you chose Orlando, Florida because you have some sort of tie to it. If you're going to retire in this area in particular, other than maybe some sort of new construction particular need like Sunbridge or something like that, then it's very possible that you have family there or you have a logistical tie. And where Windermere, you come home to all of that stuff I described, you're still just 9 miles one way to Disney and 12 miles one way to downtown Orlando. So maybe you get the best of the big city, and then when you come home, you don't always have to be in it. Okay, when it comes to neighborhoods, the one I wanted to mention in this area is called Keens Point. So this is a good example. There's multiple things going on. You have like 14-ish little neighborhoods within that total development of Keens, $400K on resale to $7 million if you look for it. So it's all over the board, but it gets you in that direction, it gets you in the vicinity, and it gives you a little bit more options than some of the more niche neighborhoods. One thing I'd say about Windermere, I wanted to use it as an example. I wanted to show you the western side, and I like the proximity it is to everything. But you also have Horizon West to your west, of course. You have Lake Buena Vista and Celebration to your south, and then of course Dr. Phillips. So really, when you're shopping this area, you want to consider the whole circle on a map, and that would cover all your bases. All right, we have made it to the halfway point. Number 5 on my list, we're talking northeast Florida. So we're getting way up, nearly in Georgia. And I want to zoom in on an area called Nocatee. So you're probably familiar with St. Augustine, Florida. This is on everyone's list when it comes to retirement, especially. It's a very special spot. If we go out 19 miles north of that, we hit an area called Nocatee. Now, the thing with Northeast, the part of the state of why you'd end up there versus all the other options you have with the Panhandle and the Gulf Coast, et cetera, is that it's a unicorn, really, when it comes to the state. It's a different bird, and you have a combination, I think, of where it stands out in historic significance and charm and coastal proximity. I mean, parts of this part of the state feel more to me like almost like a Carolinas or like a Chesapeake Bay in Maryland, more than it does in traditional tourist town Florida. So you have that. I mean, St. Augustine, Florida, I think is the oldest city, habited city that exists, basically. So you got all this kind of thing going on. Well, what Nocatee is, it's one of the top selling master plan new construction developments in the entire United States. In the number 2 now, but arguably the number 1 school district in the entire state as well. It's in St. Johns County. You have Ponte Vedra, you have beaches, and you have all of that kind of thing. New construction mixed with the proximity to those beaches when you're 10, 11 miles to the coastline. You sit right next to one of the biggest cities in the contiguous United States with Jacksonville. So you have kind of the big city. You have all of the jollies you could possibly get. So in a lot of ways, like I talked about Wellen Park in Venice, Florida, with that mix and that blend overall, I think this gives you a Northeast Florida option to do the same. Neighborhood example for our number 5 option is I'm going to throw out Del Webb Nocatee. Del Webb is the 55 and up active adult living brand of Pulte Company, which we've already mentioned in this video. And this will give you a nice kind of entry level into the idea in general. So you have 12 plus like floor model designs. Basically, you have over 3 collections, villas, single families, on-site bar and grill. It's gated, resort style pools, grand ballroom, and Del Webb goes pretty ham. It's one of the builders or the builder types styles that I feel like people will look where Del Webb is based in the state and decide if they like the locations as an alternative to looking at locations within the state and then see who's building there in that kind of order. So it is high and mighty when it comes to 55 and up active adult living new construction communities in the state of Florida. Number 6 on my list is Tampa Bay, Florida. And our zoom in city is going to be Safety Harbor. This rounds out our Southwest Gulf Coast conversation. We talked Naples, we talked Sarasota, but if you want a bigger city version, then Tampa Bay is the only mousetrap. And it has a really unique geography that satiates a lot of different stuff. You have Pinellas County, which is the coastal county. That's where St. Pete Beach is, Clearwater, all of that. Hillsborough is what you think of when you think of Tampa. That's where the airport is. It's inland, it's on the bay, etc. And then you go north of both of those options and you hit Pasco. The whole reason I said that is what it gives you many different ways to live around a rather large metro when it comes to at least Florida. So if I love Sarasota, I love Naples, right? If you're looking at retirement, you might be an empty nester, whatever it may be, you're my post-hectic work career. You don't need a city because of need. You don't have to commute. You don't need those economics. However, you could want it. You could want to be around a big city because they get the best restaurants. They get things first. They have sports and comedy. If you're from Boston or bigger cities than we're used to dealing with here in Southwest Gulf Coast, then Sarasota and Naples could be a boring existence potentially for you in juxtaposition to that. Well, with all of that being said, what Tampa strikes an amazing balance is it allows you to live like a mini Sarasota or Naples within it, but be a stone's throw from the action. That's what Safety Harbor represents. So you have a town that sits on the bay across from the Gulf that puts you 19 miles one way from downtown Tampa, which is all the action really. Like exit 39 to 44 in the main part of Tampa gives you downtown Tampa, gives you Ybor City, gives you the airport. South Tampa, it gives you the West Shore District. The Bucks are there. The spring training Yankees are there. The Lightning are there in Channelside. All of that clusters in a very small density. The theme parks, all of it's around there. And then downtown St. Pete is a whole different animal. It's like a more lifestyle first, work second. It's more eclectic, but it's a hospitality first, work second kind of amenities in that town. And then you have a myriad of beaches on the other side. What Safety Harbor gives you is an old Florida. You come home and it's old Florida. It's not high rises. It's not laden with new construction or any of that kind of stuff. But even versus its sister community of Dunedin, which is on the Gulf, it gives you a little bit better access. Is if you sit on the bay side, you're not that far from Tampa, you're not that far from St. Pete, you're not that far to go to north, south, east, or west, but it would give you the jollies of having a big city in close proximity, which is the whole point of why you would live in Tampa versus a Vero Beach or a Sarasota or one of these smaller towns. It would give you that with access without having to deal with the day-to-day minutia. Okay, and for Safety Harbor neighborhood-wise, one great example I think is called Felipe Point. So this is a great representation of the location. It kind of bridges that Safety Harbor across the bay to Oldsmar area. They're kind of that extension of you don't lose this, but you gain this. Most realistically, you're going to be in the 900 plus range there. It could be with shades of gray, but a good example of what the home style is going to be. It's going to wide variety, and this is going to be a much more mature area than the new construction ridden areas that would be more in the northern suburbs of Tampa Bay in general. Okay, number 7 on our list, we're going to call Central Atlantic Coast of Florida, and I want to zoom in on the city of Port St. Lucie. One of the biggest benefits of the Atlantic Coast that I would say the Gulf Coast doesn't offer, including the Panhandle, is that it stretches super far. So you can go from, Amelia Island down to like the Keys. And because of that, there's so many towns in between that create an eye of the beholder situation. Anytime that people can choose a bunch of cities that all have kind of similarities, but they can make stylistic preferences, it creates opportunity. And it translates a lot of times to affordability. So there's a lot of hidden gems in the middle of Florida that you really wouldn't target because everybody's going to the main spots. Everybody's going to St. Augustine and these like renowned places. Well, towns like Port St. Lucie, Vero Beach, all these areas, median cost $390, $410. They have beaches just like everywhere else. They have river in a lot of places over here, golf, dining, all that kind of thing. But because they're not clustered around like these huge cities, you get that trade-off of affordability. And a lot of times like Port St. Lucie, I'm rambling here, but Port St. Lucie, they deem as like the real Florida, is that not everyone necessarily wants to be in the minutia. They want to kind of come and have a non-New Jersey, a non-Illinois. They're escaping that kind of thing. So the last thing they want to do is move into a melting pot of their old life. And towns like this, I think, carve out that. So that's all I want to do as an example here is like the middle of Florida. So you're 45 minutes above West Palm Beach here. And Port St. Lucie, you have Jensen, you have Vero Beach, all places that have all of those retirement-centric things. They're not desolate by any stretch of the imagination, but they are going to be places that now and many years into the future, I think will still fall under the radar because other people have variety to choose from. And for Port St. Lucie neighborhood-wise, I'm going to throw out another Del Webb community. Again, I think it's not necessarily just by here, but it's a great way to learn about the town. So Del Webb Tradition, 9 floor plans, 3 home collections. They started about $360K. You have villas and single families, and then they just go ham on lifestyles. You know, so you could do all of this in this tranquil coastal seaside area. So you have tennis courts, you have bocce ball, pickleball, resort style pool, clubhouse, full-time lifestyle director. And again, this is an active adult living community, so it's not necessarily only people that are 55 and up, but it will put you in a place that if you move from out of state, the chances that you meet people that are more similar than not is very high. Okay, number 8 on our list, we're going to go to the Florida Panhandle for the very first time in this video and talk about a city called Navarre. Now, when it comes to this part of the state, it's this part of the state and then everything else. Florida's over here, and then the Panhandle's over there. So for good or bad, I think it's binary. It's either for you or it's not. And culture-wise, weather-wise, everything. It's just a different animal in general. Once you get inside the Panhandle conversation, there's a few different options. You know, you have Gulf Breeze, you have Pensacola Beach, of course, you have the renowned seaside and all that kind of thing, emerald green waters and the like. So you begin navigating that conversation. I, myself, am kind of romantic about this part of the state. I went to school at the University of West Florida. My wife's from New Orleans. She went to Gulf Breeze High. I spent a lot of time kind of living the local aspect of it. I lived in Gulf Breeze the whole time I was in school. There's a lot of, I think, fantastic ways to live in and around the Panhandle. Now, Navarre is a city that I think, again, if it keeps recurring as a theme in this video, gets a little bit off the beaten path to gain a future buyer an advantage, right? When everyone's running left, you can run right. Since you have a Pensacola Beach, since Gulf Breeze is the port into Pensacola Beach, seaside is becoming in vogue as in vogue gets. You know, the Truman Show, it's got multiple beach towns. It's insane. You know, if you live in Texas or Alabama, parts of Georgia, Mississippi, etc., like this is your Florida. Well, Navarre as an alternative to that is your suburban beach town to me. It has its own beach. It's going to be a hell of a lot less crowded. It's going to give you a lot more suburban neighborhoods that surround it. You have the local beach aspect, but then you can also shoot into Pensacola Beach or etc. You're going to have affordability, a lot more tranquility, and I still think it remains a hidden gem because of the juxtaposition of these other areas. So if I'm moving to the Panhandle, I'm really looking at like the Navarres and the Port St. Joe's of the world if I can help it personally. And if this isn't on your radar, I think it should be. And to finish out the Navarre section, one neighborhood I think you should check out is called Whispering Pines. Just over 200 home sites. Most of the homes here were built from the mid-1980s, I believe, to just past 2015. You could get potentially from a third of acre to 2 acres if you're lucky. Not that far from the military base. You're 5 miles to the wonderful beaches and a great representation of the town in general. And the 9th and final one for our 2025 list, we're going to go back to the Sarasota, Florida metro one more time and talk about a master plan area called Lakewood Ranch. If you haven't heard of this one, I'd probably be surprised, but regardless, it's the #1 multi-generational master plan new construction community that exists basically. Northeast of downtown Sarasota, it starts about 10-ish miles and then goes to about 21. And this was basically the go here, get more, get new communities, get space, all that kind of stuff you couldn't do in urban coastal communities. But it's just it's the biggest mousetrap that exists. So it's, 30,000 plus acres, 40 plus new construction communities. The oldest house in the entire development was built in 1995. So if you're looking to retire, there's multifaceted individual community things to satiate that, but also like all of that sits within 20 to 35 plus minutes one way to Siesta Key Beach, Longboat Key, Lido, St. Armand Circle, downtown Sarasota. Like Sarasota is the cultural coast of the state. So you have the John Ringley Museum, the Catazan, all this stuff. Opera House, its own world. You write Lakewood Ranch on your address instead of Bradenton. It's that scaled. And there's multiple layers of how it exists, So the reason that you would end up in there is not only the new construction, but it's just the best bet when it comes to communal amenities. When you leave your own wonderful neighborhood that has resort-style pool and a lifestyle director, all that kind of stuff, maybe golf, and you go outside of that, then you have downtown Lakewood Ranch, you have downtown Waterside Place, you have the University Town Center, you have Centerpoint, all these commercial districts, right? Let alone the Publix in every corner and all that kind of stuff. You have, 500 plus clubs that exist a year. It just gives you kind of forced communal environments where there's a better than not chance to meet your social needs or your grandkids' needs for this retirement video instead of kids, your grandkids' needs. And it's got everything, right? Library, sporting events, aquatic center, the like, that all aren't in your neighborhood, right? The chance you can't figure it out here would be super, super rare. And that's why it continues to make my list. All right. And the very last part of this video is my 9th neighborhood for Lakewood Ranch. And that's going to be Del Webb Catalina. At this point, I'm sounding like a Del Webb homer. I don't work for them. I don't get anything from it. But this just is, the timing wise, this is a fantastic example. Del Webb is, again, the 55 and up arm for Pulte's. And they built Del Webb Lakewood Ranch. And Del Webb Catalina is the northern newest example of it. And this one goes as ham as I've ever seen. 13 plus homes, so it's a large neighborhood. It's 55 and up, of course. Gated entry. You have a 15-acre lakeside amenities. There's a restaurant. It is as bougie as it gets because the further we get in time, the more innovative they can become. But this sits you in a district that gives you perspective affordability, gives you access to all the Lakewood Ranch stuff. If you missed an opportunity from an equity standpoint a couple of years ago, you get it again. And if you research this community well, then you could juxtapose the rest of what would happen, right? Because if you don't call us, for example, and you come in randomly, it's going to be a really fun trip. You're going to view a bunch of models and you're going to look at a bunch of stuff. But to say that you could step back and realize what the hell you saw in context of what you should do next, what you're missing, what else you should look at, that's what's tricky here, is that you need to say, like, if I sit here, what else should I be looking at? If I'm looking at this and I love this, what are the 2 other examples that I should look at to have no regrets? That's the name of the game here. And Del Webb Catalina gives you a nice conduit into that conversation. All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's edition of the Florida Relocation Guide. My name is Adam Hancock once again. If you liked the video and you're not already subscribed, please consider doing so. If you also hit the bell notification, just the best way to see what's coming next for the rest of December 24 out into 2025. We try to post every Sunday and Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. Of course, once again, if I can help you within the real estate market at all in all of Florida, especially Southwest Gulf Coast, please consider reaching out. My contact information will be here once again. You can call, you can text, you can email. And beyond all of that, we have free relocation guides like flipbook style PDFs on the website. We also have a once every 30-day newsletter sign up that gives you a really nice smattering platter of bite-sized information, real consumable kind of thing. No spam, just once a month on average. And yeah, in any other way I can assist in anything that you need, please consider giving me a ring. Thank you guys so much for watching my content. We'll see you on the next one.